Hello, welcome, Cabbage here. In War of the Visions, this is going to be my final review of the game, after having played JP for about 4 months. I was hoping to do this after the release of the tower in JP, because that was kind of the last big content that would be added. But I wanted to do it before the global release, and that timing just barely worked out. I previously made Week 1 and Month 1 reviews, and that Week 1 review is the most popular video I've ever made. About 10,000 views, so there's clearly a lot of interest in this game. I'm humbled that so many people would look at it, and I hope it was helpful. But I think this 4-month review is going to be even more helpful. I started this channel because I admired the Japanese Monster Strike YouTubers so much, and also because I saw that there were not many English-speaking YouTubers for the game. I did play Brave Exvius later for a bit, and put up a couple videos of that, but I quit the game because Gumi was so infuriating in how they were handling the game. Sometimes I feel like Jim Sterling crapping on Bethesda talking about Brave Exvius, but that's just how I feel. The game itself is good. I still have good memories of taking down Aigion, Bloody Moon, Marlborough, and all that, using like Ayaka, Explore Eileen, or Rena from Star Ocean, but I just couldn't stand the way the game was being handled, so gave it up. And then War of the Visions came around. I was very skeptical of playing another game from Gumi, and also I was wondering how a tactics-style game would work on mobile. There are others, like Phantom of Kill and stuff, but after having played the game, I knew after the first week that on both fronts I was pleasantly surprised, and I still feel that way 4 months later. And I think that's my general takeaway from the game, just pleasantly surprised in how the game is doing good or great on pretty much all fronts. Like the world, the concept, gameplay, balance of the meta, multiplayer, and then company side stuff like updates, communication, and generosity with rewards. And then judging from the mood of the director and the producer in interviews, and like in the live stream from last night, they seem pleasantly surprised as well with the success and the good reception of the game. But after playing the game and having my initial fears allayed, I saw a chance again like with Monster Strike, where there were not many English-speaking YouTubers on this game. But also the global version was not out yet, and so information was scarce. And the brand of Final Fantasy is a lot more popular than Monster Strike, especially around the world. So I saw a chance to fill the void, and seems like it's working so far. It's fun for me to make videos and answer questions, and sometimes I wonder if the interaction with viewers motivates me to play more and spend more. But I like the game enough that even if I weren't making videos, I'd still be playing it. But in like the previous review videos, I'll talk about what I like, and then what I didn't like beforehand, but which since have been more or less fixed by the developers. First, I love the spirit of the game. It's a descendant of the Matsuno and Yoshida and Sakimoto and Iwata games that include Ogre Battle, Tactics Ogre, Final Fantasy Tactics, and Final Fantasy XII. It's a tall order to make a mobile game that stands alongside those like legendary cult console games, but it's doing a pretty good job, all things considered. The world and characters are just what I like. It's like hand-drawn, high fantasy, hard medieval style, done not by Yoshida himself, but very influenced by him, and then done by somebody from Mr. Yoshida's art studio. The story is pretty good, but it's a little too character-centric, I think. When I think of like Ogre Battle and Final Fantasy Tactics and Final Fantasy XII, I think of like big stories with nations moving on each other, political intrigue, and like worlds or lands with long histories and like old mythologies. So far, War of the Visions story does not have all that. But again, the game is only 4 months old, so the story is still young as well. I have heard some grumbling about the graphics looking like PlayStation 1, and while I don't love the polygons, I like sprites. The polygons are actually fairly well done here, and then the animations in particular of like the faces and the bodies, they're really good. They're more modern than what the graphics seem like. And thankfully, they didn't do any of the units in the SD form, in the super deformed. I never really liked that, except for like Gundam. But going back to the world and characters, overall the feel of the game, it actually doesn't feel like a Final Fantasy, and I mean that in a good way. Or maybe like another way to say that is that the Final Fantasy that it resembles most is Tactics, which itself doesn't resemble most of the other Final Fantasies. Other things that I like are the systems within the game that are behind the battle, and then also the character leveling. Ito Hiroyuki, I talked about him in a previous video, but he's like that sort of a designer for Square, and he was responsible for the ATB battle system from Final Fantasy IV, the job system from 5. He helped with the isometric battle and the job system from Final Fantasy Tactics, and then the Gambit battle and Zodiac job system from 12. All of which I like, all of those systems. And although Mr. Ito is not directly involved with War of the Visions, his fingerprints are kind of all over it. After playing War of the Visions for a while, I went back and I played Tactics Ogre again, and then I went back and then played War of the Visions after that, and that was kind of like a real aha moment. I could really feel the similarity in the DNA between those two titles. War of the Visions does use smaller maps with fewer units on screen, but I think that's a concession that has to be made for the more casual mobile audience. But still, there's a lot of strategy, a lot of preparation that goes into those battles. The leveling system for the characters is like a combination of Final Fantasy XII's ability board and also the sub-job selection, and then also combines Final Fantasy V's job leveling mechanic, and then also Tactics, kind of mix and match of passive and reaction abilities. Things that War of the Visions does not have are like job changes, and like Tactics Ogre's ability, just freedom of ability assignment. You could give like a character like equip axe, equip sword, equip knife, equip bow. Can't do that in War of the Visions. But without the job changes and then the totally free skill assignment, it's kind of like story NPCs joining your party in Final Fantasy Tactics. Like Orlando, he has his unique job with unique skills that he will always have, so that's kind of more similar to what War of the Visions is. But yeah, Mr. Ito's fingerprints are like kind of all over this game, and the combination that they settled on, it seems to be working so far. So who would I recommend this game to? Of course, fans of Tactics Ogre and Final Fantasy Tactics. If you are a Final Fantasy fan but you have not played either of those two games, things might feel a little bit alien here, but I think you can learn to like it. Otherwise, maybe strategy game fans or retro game fans, fans of games that focus more on character leveling, maybe even like Dungeons & Dragons or board game or chess fans. And I think fans of multiplayer modes will really enjoy this. Howl from Brave Exvius, he's been asking for multiplayer modes for a while now. I think there will be some modes in War of the Visions that he'll like. On the other hand, who would not enjoy this game? I think people that don't like heavy farming, although they should wait for the auto farm feature and try that out before quitting. Also players that want to max the level of their units immediately. This is not Monster Strike where you can hit 2 buttons and then max them right away. And then also like impatient people that can't wait half a year or a full year to max some of their characters. And then also players that really want a lot of mainline or numbered Final Fantasy characters to be in the game. Right now they're very, very few, so that might be a turnoff. Another thing that's pretty good is the rotation of events that last for like a week or two. First are the raids, and those are pretty fun because you can do those co-op, and it's fun to just join games of random people and then see if you can get a team together that would be good enough to take down the raid boss in one go. Story events are cool. They add some flavor to the game, and then also gives you a chance to max out a SSR unit. The weapon grinding missions, I would say, are the least interesting. But you can do those while you sleep when you use the auto farm mechanic. And then also, usually with those weapon farming quests, they come with a super high difficulty version. And those are fun. You can also do those co-op, and that's also fun. And then collaboration events are rare, but they kind of combine different elements of those other things that I just mentioned, so they're fun too. The tower, however, which was just released, that's my favorite so far. You get pretty good rewards, and it emphasizes the importance of lower rarity units. And then also, it kind of makes you dive deep into the skill sets of characters, because you have to manage their jobs and then like their skill count, and once you run out of certain skills, you have to rely on others. So like, I've never used the spell Sleep so much in any Final Fantasy game before. And another thing that I like about War of the Visions that was so bad in Brave Exvius that it drove me away from the game, again, is the company side of the things. Namely quick and frequent updates, good communication in-game, but also on social media, and then super generous rewards. Hopefully this all carries over to the global version. But all of these things are kind of related to each other, and if they're all done well, they kind of instill more trust in the users in the game, and so they'll feel more comfortable spending more or supporting the game more. Seeing Brave Exvius screw up time after time after time and just destroying user trust was just baffling. And actually all of the JP YouTubers that I watched when I was very into the game, they've all quit now for kind of similar reasons. But so far, War of the Visions is really listening to users, and they're actually listening to them for like quality of life stuff, and then making adjustments that are reasonable. There are always some people that ask for totally unreasonable stuff, but... And there's always stuff to do every week, and then they're always making updates for things that players don't even realize that they want. And that's a sign of a team that's really on it. And they also lay down roadmaps for like the coming 2 or 3 months, what they have planned. And they give a lot of in-game rewards to users, sometimes to apologize for stuff, sometimes to like celebrate a milestone, but often just for no reason at all. It's a really generous game, and you can pull at least a 10-shot every week as a free-to-play player, I'm pretty sure. But I think in the current mobile game world, you have to be on top of your stuff, and then also be very generous in order to kind of differentiate yourself from all of the other games out there. Brave Exvius, it's still operating like it's 2015, being very stingy and slow, and I don't think that's gonna cut it anymore. And then this might not matter to most people, but the voice acting is also pretty good in this game. I think from a mobile game you would expect more sort of like vanilla stereotypes, but nearly every character has a really distinct performance with some subtlety. And then I can really say that these are performances rather than just like a guy speaking some lines just for a paycheck. They find people with really interesting voices, and then you get into good performances from them. In Global, there will be the option to select Japanese voices, and I hope you all give it a try, so you can sort of enjoy the artistry of Japanese voice acting. Next, let's talk about like dislikes or like worries that I had earlier, but which have since been more or less addressed. One was the very heavy amount of farming that is required, and indeed, there is very heavy farming to be done in this game. But later, they add the auto farm feature, where you can, like for example, fill up your stamina to 1,000, set up your device for auto farm, connect it to power, and then go to sleep. And then when you wake up, your game will have farmed for like, hours or whatever, however long it takes to get through that 1,000 stamina, and you'll have a bunch of materials or whatever. And since I've been doing that, I've needed to play the game less during the day when I'm awake, and so I can spend more time focusing on multiplayer or the tower, or like being a person and reading a book or going outside or something, so it's pretty good. Another thing that was worrying at first was the gacha rate. On paper it looks low, even though it's kind of similar or comparable to other mobile games. But I don't know how accurately I can really speak to it. I do spend in the game, but also generally my luck is pretty good in mobile games. If you've seen my Monster Strike videos, you know I'm a pretty lucky guy. But I feel like the gacha rates in War of the Visions are not that bad. I've seen plenty of pulls from YouTubers where they pull like 5 or 10 shots and get nothing, and that sucks. But in all my pulling, I've never really felt cheated. I felt that the rates are pretty good. I think the key to me thinking that, however, is that you'll probably get something you are, even if it's not exactly what you want. As more concrete examples, there are 2 units that I've chased particularly. A UR at 0.8% and then an SSR at 1%. And I got both within 100 pulls. But that's totally anecdotal evidence, so it might mean nothing. But in my experience, it's been doable. And then next is the expense of the game. Like, is this an expensive game? It does depend on how you play, but yes, it can get very expensive. And this is still a thing that I think has not been addressed, and which probably won't be addressed. There are different tiers within the game for how much you spend, and that's just the way it is. The key, however, to keeping your spending down, though, is to select a very few number of units and then focus on them. And so you'll pull the hatcher, you know, say you do your 100 pulls, you get the character. You stop pulling at that point, and then you focus your resources on getting the materials to raise that character to 99. And then, once you have a team of level 99 characters, then you'll be set for all facets of the game. It's when you start chasing new characters that the spending cycle begins again. So, if you have some self-restraint, you can keep your spending down. And then finally, for a worry that I had, which has now been addressed, is that at first I was ambivalent about multiplayer, but I kind of don't care about multiplayer in all video games that I've played ever. I really like solo video gaming. But I'm really enjoying it in this game, which I think says a lot. Arena is cool because it's more of a game of like preparation and then reading the opponent rather than like in-battle strategy. And it's kind of changed up every couple weeks because of new maps, different bonus stats, different featured units, and then of course all the new units. So low impact, but it is fun from a strategy point of view and setting up your party. And then Guild is that same way. Most of the focus is on the preparation and then choosing the right opponent. But you do it on a team, and then you play it against another team. And it's fun to use the chat to talk to your other guild members and think of strategies or just talk about random stuff. And then I found in the guild battles that participation from more of your guild members is as important, or maybe more important even, than everybody having super strong characters. So I feel like the balance is good there. And then there's the everyday co-op. That's not exactly fun because you're just farming for materials. But there are real advantages to doing so. And then the whole experience of all of the multiplayer options, they're all pretty smooth. People join your game quickly. Rooms are quick to open up. Battles are quick to open up. So it's pretty stress-free. That was another pleasant surprise with this game, just how smooth all of the multiplayer is. One concern, I talked about this earlier, but one concern that people have had are the low number of mainline FF characters, and the fact that they are limited time. My advice is to try the game and see how you like the original characters in the game, how they look and sound and play before dismissing the game. I think by not including a lot of mainline characters at first, this is a conscious decision by Square and Gumi. They're really confident in the strength of the characters and the world and the story, and so far I think they're right. Most Japanese players, myself included, we don't even notice the lack of mainline characters because we're enjoying the original characters so much. As for the mainline units being limited, It's good and bad, of course, but the way that I would approach it is to judge each game on their own terms and not to compare them to other games. Like for Brave Exvius, nostalgia is a very strong selling point, and so that's why you see lots of numbered characters, even as like common or uncommon characters in the Hatcher. But in War of the Visions, not so much. And War of the Visions, you know, again, they're really banking on their original characters. The mainline characters, they really feel like kind of like guests in this game. And I don't want to say that they feel out of place in the world, but like the identity of the world is so strong and so different from other Final Fantasies that like you could take out like the Chocobos and the Moogles and the Cactars and the Espers out of War of the Visions, and then I don't think you could point to anything and say it's a Final Fantasy game. That's how much of its own identity it has, I feel like. So, judge every game based on their own terms, and you'll just be less disappointed overall. I was very biased against Gumi before starting this game, and I almost didn't install it because of that. But I went in with an open mind, and again, I was pleasantly surprised with how good the game was, and here I am. Alright, so that is my final month for review of War of the Visions, and from now I'll be playing Global in addition to JP. So you can look forward to videos from both of those versions. Alright, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again. Take care.